I was 17 when I learned that love and theft can wear the exact same face. My sister Claire had that face. She had it when she held my hand in the kitchen and cried about how she couldn't conceive. She had it when she drove me to that cottage in the woods where no one would hear me scream during labor. And she definitely had it when she took my son from my arms and said, "Thank you, Maya. I'll give him the life you never could." I never saw her face again for 18 years. Not really. I saw it in photographs she sent every Christmas, her smiling beside a boy she called Ethan, with a note that read, "Thanks for my most precious gift." She never signed her name. She didn't need to. We both knew what she had taken and what she had left me with. Welcome to Little Bunny Stories. If you're new here, my name is Maya, and this is the story of how I watched my own child grow up from the shadows for nearly 2 decades, and how I finally stepped into the light. If this channel has ever made you feel less alone, hit subscribe. We tell stories like this every week. And if you're watching this because someone stole something from you and called it love, stay until the end. I need you to hear how this ends. Here's my story. I grew up in a house where silence was currency. My mother traded in it. She could look at a screaming argument across the dinner table and say, "Pass the potatoes," as if nothing was happening. My father was already gone by then, not dead, just disappeared into a job that kept him away 6 days a week. So when I got pregnant at 17, I didn't tell anyone at first. I thought if I was quiet enough, it might go away, but Claire noticed. Claire always noticed. She was 25, married to a man named Richard who made good money selling insurance, living in a house with a porch swing and a nursery that sat empty. She came to visit one weekend, walked into my room without knocking, and found the pregnancy test in my trash can. She didn't yell. She sat on my bed, took my hand, and cried, "You're so young, Maya, so young, and I'm so empty." I didn't understand what she meant. Not then. I thought she was being kind. I thought the tears were for me. She proposed the plan over the next 3 days. She would tell our mother that I was going to stay with a friend for the summer, some girl from school who lived 2 towns over. She would rent a cottage 2 hours north where no one knew our family. I would give birth there in secret and she would take the baby. "Just temporarily," she said, "until you finish school, until you're ready." I asked about adoption agencies, about lawyers, about the birth certificate. Claire smiled that smile again. "We don't need all that bureaucracy, sweetheart, I'm your sister. Family takes care of family. This way the baby stays in the family. You can see him whenever you want, you'll be the cool aunt." I was 17, I was terrified, and I was so stupid. The cottage was small and smelled like mildew and old wood. Claire hired a midwife, a woman named Gloria who asked no questions and took cash in an envelope. I labored for 14 hours, alone except for Gloria and Claire who held my hand and whispered, "Push, Maya, push for both of us." When he came out, he didn't cry at first. He just looked at me, this tiny purple creature with eyes that seemed already old. Gloria cleaned him, wrapped him, and placed him in my arms. I held him for exactly 4 to 7 minutes. I counted. I memorized every detail, the way his hair curled at the crown, the small birthmark on his left ankle shaped like a crescent moon, the smell of him, which was like rain and something sweeter I couldn't name. Then Claire took him. "Just for now," she said, bundling him in a blanket I had knitted during the months I waited. "Rest, Maya, you've done so well." I slept for 6 hours. When I woke up, the cottage was empty. The crib Claire had bought was gone. The diapers, the bottles, the tiny clothes, the blanket, and my son. She left a note on the kitchen table. "Thank you for my gift. I'll love him enough for both of us." See, I walked 2 miles to the nearest road and hitched a ride home. I didn't cry. I couldn't. It felt like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left a hollow that echoed. My mother was in the kitchen when I walked in. She looked up from her crossword puzzle, saw my face, and went back to her pencil. "Claire called," she said. She said it went smoothly. "She's going to name him Ethan. It's a good, strong name." I stood in the doorway, still bleeding, still wearing the same clothes from the cottage, and I said she took him. She just took him. My mother set down her pencil. For a moment, she looked at me with something that might have been pity. Then she said, "If you say anything, Maya, you destroy your sister. Richard doesn't know. No one knows. Do you want that child to grow up knowing his real mother abandoned him? Is that the story you want him to carry?" "I didn't abandon him," I whispered. "She took him." "And you let her," my mother said, picking up her pencil again. "So now you choose. You can be the girl who ruined her sister's life, or you can be the girl who made a sacrifice. Those are your options. There is no third door." I chose silence. Not because I agreed with her, but because I was 17 and hollow, and I didn't know how to make noise when noise had never been currency in our house. I finished high school from home. My mother told the school I had mono. I graduated by mail, my diploma arriving in an envelope with a generic congratulations letter. I got a job at a diner 2 towns over, working the breakfast shift, saving money for I didn't know what. I told myself I was waiting to be older, waiting to be braver, waiting for Claire to honor her promise and let me see him. She sent the first photograph when he was 6 months old. Ethan in a blue onesie, sitting in a high chair, smashing cake into his hair. The note said, "He's perfect, thank you again." I kept that photograph in my wallet until it fell apart. Then I put the pieces in a box under my bed, along with every other photograph she sent, first steps, first birthday, first day of school. Always with a note, always signed with a C instead of her name, always ending with thank you. I never wrote back, I didn't know what to say. You're welcome felt like a lie. Give him back felt like a threat I couldn't enforce, so I said nothing and Claire took my silence as agreement. I moved out at 19 into a studio apartment with a hot plate and a bathroom down the hall. I got my GED, then enrolled in community college. I wanted to be a nurse. I told myself it was because I wanted to help people, but the truth was darker than that. I wanted to be in hospitals. I wanted to be near birth certificates and medical records, and the places where babies became real on paper. I thought if I understood the system, I could find a way back into it. I graduated from nursing school at 24. I got a job at St. Margaret's Hospital, in the neonatal intensive care unit. It was the same hospital where I had been born. The same hospital where, I later learned, Gloria the midwife had once worked before she retired to taking cash jobs in cottages. I worked the night shift. I held premature babies while their mothers slept. I learned to recognize the smell of rain and sweetness that newborns carry. And sometimes, in the quiet hours between 3 and 5 in the morning, I would hold a baby who had a crescent moon birthmark on his ankle, and I would have to leave the room until my hand stopped shaking. I saw Ethan for the first time when he was 7. I was 24, working a second job at a coffee shop near his elementary school because Claire had mentioned, in one of her Christmas notes, that he was thriving in the gifted program at Lincoln Elementary. I told myself I just wanted to see the building. I told myself I wouldn't go inside. I went inside. I bought a coffee I didn't drink. I sat by the window and watched the dismissal bell ring. He came out holding a teacher's hand, a small boy with Claire's dark hair and my narrow shoulders. He was telling the teacher something, gesturing with his free hand, and she was laughing. I watched him get into a silver SUV that I knew was Claire's. I watched him drive away. I went back every day for 3 months. I never spoke to him. I never got close. I just sat in that coffee shop, watching him grow from the other side of glass, and I told myself it was enough. It was not enough, it was never enough. But it was all I had, so I learned to make it fill the hollow. I moved to another coffee shop when he started middle school, then another when he started high school. I was always nearby, always watching, always silent. I learned his schedule. I knew his favorite pizza place, the park where he played basketball, the bench where he sat to wait for Claire to pick him up when she was late. I knew these things the way you know your own heartbeat, unconsciously, constantly, whether you want to or not. I made a friend once. Her name was Patricia and her son was on Ethan's soccer team. I joined the parent group chat under a fake name. I went to one game. I sat in the bleachers at the far end, wearing sunglasses and a hat, and I watched Ethan score a goal. Patricia found me afterward and asked if I was okay. I said I was allergic to the sun. She believed me. She invited me to the team barbecue. I said I was busy. I went home and cried for 3 hours, and I didn't know why. I was 32 when I finally spoke to him. Not directly, I wasn't brave enough for that. But I was working the cafeteria at his high school for a semester, a temporary job I took specifically because I knew he would be there. I wore a hairnet and a name tag that said M. I served pizza and salad and I watched him laugh with his friends at a table near the window. One day he came through my line. He was taller than me by then, with a voice that cracked when he said, "Can I get extra cheese?" I gave him extra cheese. My hands didn't shake, I was proud of that. "Thanks," he said, not looking at my face. He never looked at my face. I was just the lunch lady. I was just furniture. "You're welcome." "Lucas," I said, it slipped out. I didn't mean to say it. I didn't even realize I had said it until he paused, turned back and said, "What? Nothing," I said quickly. I said, "You're welcome, enjoy your lunch." He walked away but he looked back once. Just once. and for a second I saw confusion in his eyes. Not recognition, he didn't know me, but something, a flicker, like hearing a song in a language you don't speak but feeling like you should. I quit the next day. I couldn't risk it again. I couldn't risk Claire finding out I was close. I couldn't risk him finding out the truth from a lunch lady in a hairnet in a cafeteria that smelled like tomato sauce and regret. The letters started when he turned 10. I wrote them every year on his birthday, never sending them. I told him about the cottage, about Gloria, about the 4 to 7 minutes I held him, about the crescent moon on his ankle, about his real name, Lucas, which means light because he was the only light I had in 18 years of darkness. I told him about the coffee shops, the bleachers, the cafeteria. I told him I wasn't asking to be his mother. I was just asking him to know that he had been wanted, that he had been held, that the woman who raised him had stolen him, but the woman who gave birth to him had never stopped looking for him, even when looking meant sitting in silence across a room. By his 18th birthday, I had 18 letters. I kept them in a shoebox in my closet, tied with a ribbon Claire had once used on one of her Christmas packages. Ironic, I thought. She had given me ribbons to wrap her theft. I was 36, working still in the NICU at St. Margaret's when Gloria the midwife came in for gallbladder surgery. She was 73, retired officially now, living with her daughter in the same town where the cottage had been. I wasn't her nurse, but I saw her in the hallway. She didn't recognize me at first. Then she did. "You're the girl from the cottage," she said, not a question. "Yes," I said. She looked at me for a long time. Then she said, "I wondered what happened to you. I wondered if you were okay." "I wasn't," I said. "I'm not sure I am now." She nodded as if this was reasonable. "I kept records," she said. "I shouldn't have. It was illegal what we did, but I kept records. Birth weight, time of birth, mother's name, real name. I kept them in case you ever needed them. I didn't ask for them. I didn't need to. I already knew everything she had written down, but I thanked her. And when she was discharged, she pressed an envelope into my hand. Inside was a photocopy of a birth certificate, not the official one that had been altered, Claire had seen to that, but the original, the one with my name on it. Meyer Elena Torres, mother. Lucas Gabriel Torres, son. Born 2:47 a.m. July 14th, at a cottage in the woods, delivered by Gloria Hernandez, midwife. I held that paper in the parking lot of St. Margaret's, and I cried for the first time since I was 17. Not quiet tears. Not the silent currency of my mother's house. I cried like a woman who had been holding her breath for 18 years and had finally been given permission to exhale. Ethan found out he was adopted 2 weeks before his high school graduation. I know because Patricia told me we had kept in touch sporadically through social media. She said Ethan had found some paperwork, had confronted Claire, and Claire had broken down and told him a story about a drug-addicted birth mother who had abandoned him in a park. She said he was devastated. She said he had started searching for his real mother, but the records were sealed, the trail cold. I knew then that I couldn't wait anymore, not because I wanted to claim him, not because I wanted to punish Claire, though God knows she deserved it, but because Claire was feeding him poison, and I was the only one who had the antidote. I didn't go to his graduation ceremony. I went to the party afterward, held at Claire and Richard's house with the porch swing and the nursery that was now a home office. I stood across the street for an hour, watching cars arrive, watching people in dresses and suits carry gifts. I watched Claire greet guests at the door, smiling that same smile, wearing the same face. Then I crossed the street. I didn't knock. I walked in through the open door, past the guests, past the table with the cake that said "Congratulations, Ethan" in blue frosting. I found him in the backyard, standing alone near the fence, looking at his phone. He looked up when I approached. He didn't know me. I was just a woman in a navy dress, holding a shoebox. "Ethan," I said, or Lucas, depending on which story you believe. He looked at me with the same confusion I had seen in the cafeteria. "Do I know you?" "No," I said, "but I know you. I know the crescent moon on your left ankle. I know you were born at 2:47 a.m. on a rainy night in July. I know your first word was light," you pointed at a lamp and said it, and Claire thought you were saying night, but you were saying light. I know because I was there for 4 to 7 minutes, and I have remembered every second of them for 18 years. He didn't move, he didn't speak, he just looked at me and I saw the confusion deepen into something else. Fear, maybe, or hope, or both. "I'm not here to be your mother," I said. "I'm here to give you something that was stolen from you, the truth." I handed him the shoebox. "There are 18 letters in here, one for every birthday. They tell you what really happened. Not the story Claire told you. Not the story about a woman who abandoned you in a park. The the story about a girl who was 17 and scared and manipulated by her own sister, and who has spent 18 years watching you grow up from across rooms and across streets and across lies, because she didn't know how to make noise in a house where silence was currency. He took the box. He didn't open it. He just held it. Why now? He asked. His voice was steady. I was proud of him for that. Because you started looking, I said. And because Claire is telling you that your birth mother was a monster. I needed you to know that she wasn't. She was just a kid who made a terrible choice because she thought it was her only one. And she has spent every day since trying to find a way back to you that doesn't destroy the life you've built. I turned to leave. He said, wait. What's your name? I stopped. I looked back at him, this man, this child, this light that had kept me alive without knowing it. Maya, I said. My name is Maya, and your name is Lucas. It means light. I named you that because you were the only light I had. For 18 years you were the only light I had. I walked away. I didn't look back, I couldn't. I had used all my courage to get that far and I had nothing left. He found me 3 days later. He came to St. Margaret's to the NICU and he asked for me at the nurse's station. I was holding a premature baby, a girl born at 28 weeks, no bigger than my hand. I handed her to the charge nurse and walked out to meet him. He looked different in daylight. Older, younger, both. I read them, he said. All of them. I nodded. I didn't ask what he thought. I didn't ask if he hated me. I just waited. She told me you were a drug addict, he said. She told me you left me in a park in November. She told me I was lucky she found me before I froze. I know, I said. Why didn't you come for me? It was the question I had asked myself every night for 18 years. I had 1,000 answers prepared. I was young. I was scared. I didn't know how. The law was against me. Claire was against me. My own mother was against me, but looking at him, I didn't give any of those answers. I gave the only true one. Because I didn't know how to love you out loud, I said. I only knew how to love you in silence. And silence was the only currency I had. It took me 18 years to learn that some debts can't be paid in the coin you're given. Some debts require you to mint your own. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, can I see the other letters? The ones you didn't write. The ones from the years before, there aren't any, I said. I started writing when you turned 10. Before that, I didn't have words. I only had watching. He nodded, as if this made sense. The birthmark, he said, on my ankle. I always wondered why she got so angry when I asked about it. She said it was nothing. She said to stop showing people. It's shaped like a crescent moon, I said. Yeah, he said, it is. We stood in the hallway of the hospital where he was born, where I had been born, where I had spent 18 years holding other people's babies while mine grew up across town. And for the first time, I didn't feel hollow. I felt full. Not complete, not yet, maybe not ever, but full. Like the hollow had finally stopped echoing and started holding something real. I didn't move into Claire's life. I didn't sue her. The statute of limitations in our state had expired years ago, and even if it hadn't, I didn't want her in prison. I wanted her in the truth, which is a different kind of cage. One she had built herself, and one she would have to live in for the rest of her life. Ethan, Lucas, he started visiting me on Sundays. At first it was awkward. We sat in my small apartment and talked about safe things, his major in college, my work in the NICU, the books we both liked. He didn't call me Mom. I didn't ask him to. I was Maya and he was figuring out who he was, and that was enough. Slowly the safe topics expanded. He asked about the cottage. I told him. He asked about Gloria. I told him. He asked about my mother, his grandmother, the woman who had chosen silence over justice. I told him she had died 2 years earlier, peacefully in her sleep with a crossword puzzle half-finished on her nightstand. I didn't go to the funeral. Claire didn't invite me. He asked about the coffee shops, the bleachers, the cafeteria. I told him about all of it. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he said, "You were always there." I was always there, I agreed. That's not nothing, he said. No, I said, it's not nothing, but it's not enough. And I'm sorry it took me so long to give you more. He reached across the table and took my hand. It was the first time he had touched me since I held him for 4 to 7 minutes in a cottage that smelled like mildew and old wood. His hand was bigger than mine now, warm, strong. I don't know what to call you, he said. You don't have to call me anything, I said. I'm just Maya, the woman who loved you in silence for 18 years and who is trying to learn how to love you out loud. He squeezed my hand. Maya, he said, trying it out. Maya, it sounded like music, it sounded like light. Claire called me once after Lucas told her he knew. She was crying. She said I had destroyed her family. She said I was selfish. She said I had ruined everything. I listened. I didn't argue. When she finished, I said, "You told him his mother was a drug addict who left him in a park." I told him his mother was a scared girl who loved him enough to let him go, and who spent 18 years trying to find her way back. Which of us destroyed something, Claire? And which of us tried to save it? She hung up. I haven't heard from her since. Richard divorced her 6 months later. I don't know where she lives now. I don't care. She is in her own cage, and I am finally free of mine. Lucas is 20 now. He calls himself Lucas officially, though he kept Ethan as a middle name. It's part of my story, he said. I don't want to erase it. I just want to understand it. He visits every Sunday. Sometimes he brings friends. Sometimes he brings girlfriends. He introduces me as Maya, my birth mother, and then he adds, she's the bravest person I know, which makes me cry every time, and he knows it. And he does it anyway because he's a little bit of a jerk, which I love about him. I still work in the NICU. I still hold premature babies while their mothers sleep. But now, when I hold a baby with a crescent moon birthmark, I don't leave the room. I stay. I tell the mother if she's awake, your baby is perfect. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And if anyone tries to take this from you, you fight. You make noise. You spend every coin you have, and then you mint your own. I'm Maya. I'm 36 years old. I spent 18 years in silence, and I'm spending the rest of my life learning how to speak. If someone stole your light and called it love, I need you to know, the darkness doesn't last forever. Sometimes it takes 18 years. Sometimes it takes longer. But the light is still yours. It was always yours. And someday, if you keep looking, you'll find your way back to it. See you in the next story.